wanna speak while you're distracted by the levels you dare to climb. A straight shooter with nostalgia I haven't felt in a long while. You make it feel like it's the arcade when we're playing pixel out until the day breaks. We'll keep breaking down, let's hope the next play. Things change, the score is rising as the screen fades. Ain't over when you stay. Now who's that saying they're the pinball wizard? He moves too slow with his grubby little fingers. Keep pressing buttons and see what gets triggered. I'll just smile and watch him reconsider again.
Woo! Finger in my hair. There's madness in the air. This is the Fight Guy. I'm your host, Guy Pert. This is a special episode. I'm going to be reacting to and breaking down every single fight from UFC 313. I care more than most of the people that you've seen give these breakdowns or reactions because I was there, live in the flesh. All right, section 13, great seats. Surrounded by great people for the most part. There was a dumb fat ass about 3 rows behind me. I thought I was the MMA guru, but the accent didn't quite add up. Shouldn't have been allowed into the event. Should not have been allowed into the event. I digress. There's some controversy around a few of these fights. A lot of people are getting them wrong. Even your favorites, like the MMA guru, like Ariel. A lot of people are on the wrong side of history here, and I'm glad I have a YouTube channel where I get to break this down and be on the right side. We nailed the predictions. Absolutely smashed them. I think I was 8 out of 10. All right, with my losses being Jalen Turner and Alex Pereira. Besides those two, I nailed these. Went 5 for 5 on the prelims. One of them was a robbery. I shouldn't have won, but we'll take it. I'm going to get into all of this. We're going to break it all down, give my live reaction, how I was feeling. And we're going to start with the very first fight on the prelims. First fight on the card, Mairon Santos versus Ozzy Diaz. What do you know? The guy that I said would win won. I knew this was my biggest lock next to Justin Gaethje. Both of which were underdogs and my favorite picks on the entire card. This was an easy no-brainer for me. Ozzy Diaz basically jabbed his way to a victory. I'd say he lost the first round, but he easily took rounds 2 and 3. I mean, I say easily. They were closer rounds, but he was in control. He was moving forward, and his shots were just cleaner. All right, you do that for 10 minutes straight, you're going to win both those rounds. The judging was a little bit off on Saturday, but for the most part, it wasn't that bad. Mairon Santos, 10 and 2. All right, that record does not reflect his fighting capabilities, right? Ozzy Diaz has been in there with some tough guys. His Contender Series debut, like I mentioned on last week's video, was against Joe Pyfer, who's a knockout artist and a great wrestler. Mairon Santos hasn't fought anybody with a winning record, one guy before Ozzy Diaz, and that was his Contender Series fight. So that 10 and 2, 10 and 1 going into this, you shouldn't pay any attention to unless you're a casual and you look into those type of things. He hasn't fought anybody good. He had his hands up at the end of every round, like body language was going to win the fight in the eyes of the judges. Not high striking skills, not high grappling skills. He was just an average Joe out there, and he looked like it on Saturday. Not really much to say. Ozzy Diaz threw maybe 2 power shots the entire fight. It was just a soft jab. People are saying, the MMA guru is saying, this was one of the better fights of the year. It was not. He's also saying that this was a robbery. It was not a robbery. All right, just because the guy that you picked to win didn't win doesn't mean it was a robbery. Mairon Santos is skillless. All right, I would be surprised if he makes it into the middleweight rankings. That's a tough division right now. Good win for Ozzy Diaz. Mediocre fighters. But yeah, it was an easy pick for Ozzy. We nailed that one. Next fight, Mairon Santos versus Santos-Marshall. Now this one was a robbery. This was the worst robbery I've ever seen. But Santos-Marshall won this fight. One judge got the score correctly, 30-27 for Santos-Marshall. The other two gave 29-28 to Mairon Santos. He was on my parlays. I was in Vegas, so I bet on this fight. But I wasn't mad that my guy won. But it's bad for the sport. Santos-Marshall secured a takedown in every single round. He was busy on the feet. Santos, he got knocked down in the first round. So obviously that's the round that all 3 judges gave to Francis. But the next 2 rounds, 2 of the judges gave to Santos. That was just a bad scorecard, honestly. But good win from Mairon Santos. His chin is questionable. Santos-Marshall, he kind of fights like a Clayton Carpenter type. He'll make it a dogfight. He'll mix in the wrestling with his strikes beautifully, and that's exactly what he did this fight. In my opinion, Santos-Marshall did win all 3 rounds, but 2 of the judges didn't see it that way. I guess they had money on the line. I'm not sure. My solution to bad scorecards, all right, this is an easy solution. There should be a 1-question form that the judges have to fill out after a decision fight. If the fight ends in a submission or maybe even a no contest or a knockout, the judges don't have to do this. But if they're making money and they're scoring the fights that's going to result in a change in trajectory in both fighters' careers, they need to give a reason for why they scored this round for this fighter. All right, that is, if a judge scores a round for a guy that clinch holds somebody against the fence for 4 minutes but gets outstruck, they need to put in writing that they value the clinch control time than the significant strikes that the other guy landed. That way we have, for example, Sal D'Amato. All right. Oh, he values clinch control over slightly more significant strikes. Then we have that written and recorded in the future. So whenever we see a similar fight take place with a similar judge scoring that fight, and if they score it the other way, then they're questionable and their license should be at risk. That's my opinion. It was a great fight, though. Like I said, thought Santos-Marshall won, but we went with Mairon Santos, and he won, so we're 2 for 2 on the prelims. Moving on to the third fight, Alex Morono versus Carlos Leal. If you looked at the odds before this, Leal was a minus 800 favorite, and he showed that with a round 1 knockout at the end of the round with less than a minute left. That's pretty much how this fight went. Carlos Leal was just hiding behind his jab, and he threw some power punches in. Both these guys were swinging. It was great. I have a little clip from the fights. Maybe I'll edit it in for you guys to see when Morono got knocked out, but it was a great win for Carlos Leal. Alex Morono, I feel bad for him. He's fought some of the toughest welterweights, and he just can't seem to catch a break. Carlos Leal is no joke. I think this was his first fight in the UFC. Maybe he's done one other one and he's been or he's lost. Let me double check that real quick. Yeah, he lost a unanimous decision. So this was his first win in the UFC. Congratulations to Carlos Leal. That's who we went with to get the knockout win against Alex Morono. Fourth fight on the preliminary bouts, Brunno Ferreira versus Arman Petrosyan. Brunno Ferreira got the submission. I thought he would get a knockout, but I did mention in my video last week that he does have great grappling skills. And Arman Petrosyan, he has 1 submission loss going into this fight. Now he has 2 submission losses, no submission wins. He doesn't have great grappling. I thought this fight would end on the feet because both these guys they went at it. It was like the Morono fight. They were swinging. Petrosyan even landed more total strikes. But once Brunno got it to the ground, he jumped the back, ended up with an armbar submission. So great win, Brunno Ferreira. That's who we went with to win this fight. We're 4 for 4 on the prelims. Going into the 5th fight on the preliminary card, the feature bout with the Curtis Blades cut, Joshua Van versus Ray Segura. This fight went to decision. I thought Joshua Van would knock Ray out. This fight went pretty much exactly how I thought it would go. I thought we would get like a round 2 knockout. But Ray Segura, he's a one-dimensional fighter, like a freestyle wrestler type with good submissions. And that's what we saw. We saw these freestyle shots. He was going and shooting in and landing on both knees, which is not something you want to do in a mixed martial arts bout, especially with a guy like Joshua Van with half-decent plus takedown defense. I think Segura, he was going from Marab's record, 49 takedowns. Got almost half of them. He shot 21 takedown attempts, landed 4 of them. It didn't really even look like he had that much control time. I don't remember him having almost 4 minutes of control time. Nonetheless, Joshua Van stuffed almost all of those takedowns, and he was making Ray pay for him with harsh elbows, harsh, dirty boxing. Joshua Van looked great. All right, he's not one that can be fraud checked. He's the fraud checker, and that's exactly what happened. Undefeated fighter lost. Another undefeated fighter loses this year. It seems to be not the year for the undefeated fighters. Joshua Van outlasted Ray Sierra in a dominant 30-27 decision win. He looked very, very good. Ray Sierra looked trash. I don't see him having a future in the UFC. I hope he gets cut if he hasn't been cut already. We move on to the main card. Not many fights. We only had 10, but they were great fights. So we were 5 for 5 on the prelims. Nailed those. We move on. First fight on the main card. King Green versus Mauricio Ruffy. I said Mauricio Ruffy would get the knockout win, and I was right. Might be knockout of the year. Just like we had last year, knockout of the year in March with Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje. We had a knockout. This will be knockout of the year in March. We're 2 for 2. March is the month of knockout of the year, it seems like, moving forward. Mauricio Ruffy had a dirty, spinning heel kick right to the temple. I believe it hit Bobby's nose and temple, right side of his head at the same time. It was insane. I don't know what they're drinking, what's in the water, what secret juice is down there in Brazil, but these guys are built different. Bobby Green, this was hard to watch. He's just been taking a lot of damage recently in his past at least 5 fights. I mean, this guy, he's not the same Bobby Green as a few years ago. I don't think he should be cut from the UFC, but I don't see him getting any more ranked opponents moving forward. Maybe just a couple veterans. I heard somebody say Michael Johnson. That would be a great fight. Maybe, he's already fought Jim Miller. I think Clay Guida might have retired. I'm not sure. Those are the type of guys you got to give Bobby Green next. Give him a few more. I don't see him being on the roster after 2025. And I love him, but I didn't go with him to win this fight. So we were right. We're 6 for 6. Not much else to say. It was a round 1 knockout of the year contender. We move on to the most boring fight, not only on this card, not only of 2025, but one of the most boring fights I've ever seen in my life. This was a bathroom break fight, as I like to say, but we went with the underdog, Amanda Lemos. This was night of the underdogs, fellas. We were nailing the underdog picks. Almost nailed every single underdog pick except for Ankalaev. But Amanda Lemos won this fight. After the first round, Eisman did not look like she wanted to be in there. As you could see, there was 70 total strikes thrown between both of these, I want to say young ladies, but Amanda's near 40. Both of these ladies, 70 total strikes. As you could see, this entire fight pretty much was on the ground. Amanda Lemos, like I mentioned in my video last week, her grappling is not to be overlooked. 4 minutes of control time against Mackenzie Dern is a big deal. All right, and she had almost 8 full minutes of control time against Eisman Lucindo. She didn't know what to do. She was tired. She was taking damage on the ground. She looked like she was waiting for the buzzer, which we didn't get. I've never seen this before, but the fight was called 7 seconds early, right? There was 7 seconds left in the third round. Both women just put their hands up, and that was it. Interesting. Don't really see that with men's fights. I digress. Look, this is called the fight guy, not the fight girl for a reason, and it's not because of my gender. It's because I like to watch these guys fight, and for this reason right here, this was just a terrible fight for this card. It kind of dulled the momentum. We're coming off of a Mauricio Ruffy heel kick, probably knockout of the year, and then we get this. It was a boring fight, but we had the pick correct, so we are 7 for 7 going into the third fight on the main card. Jalen Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. I went with Jalen Turner this fight. I do regret going with Jalen Turner. I'll say that. I regret picking Jalen Turner. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I thought that he would have better fight IQ going into this fight. Jalen Turner, and I think I made a post about it here, Jalen Turner's fight IQ is the worst the UFC's ever seen. Somebody else said Brendan Allen's king doesn't hold a candle. But yeah, it was absolutely awful. I have a video I put on my X account, but Jalen Turner gets a takedown, right? He was winning the striking exchanges. It was a little bit close. It says Ignacio had more strikes. It looked like Jalen Turner was winning. His strikes were landing a little bit harder on the feet. All right, he's a counter striker. He was countering Ignacio's volume and landing harder shots on the feet. Gets Ignacio down. It was like a little trip or something. It wasn't a serious takedown attempt. He ends up in half guard. All right, we burned through about a minute and a half. As you see, he's got a minute 43 of control time. Jalen Turner, the very first thing they teach you as a white belt in jiu-jitsu, all right? The very first thing, it's the golden rule. When you're sitting in somebody's full guard, all right, you are either both arms in or both arms outside of their legs. You are never one in, one out. You're never one in, one out. Look at that. It's 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. 5 seconds he had where he left one arm inside the middle. Low fight IQ. Because you get triangled, then you get armbarred. That's the golden rule when it comes to jiu-jitsu and the guard game, is you are either both in or both out. Jalen Turner had 5 seconds. Think about that. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. 5 seconds where he sat with one arm in, like this. Like a dog that found a stick and he's proud of the stick that he's found and he's just sitting up proudly by his stick. One arm in, one arm out. And then he gets triangled. Time after time, fight after fight, Jalen Turner, I go with this guy to win because he's so goddamn talented. He's one of the most talented lightweights, hence why he's ranked 13 going into this fight. Very talented striker. He's got decent grappling skills. Great striking skills. The worst fight IQ in the UFC. Maybe the worst fight IQ in UFC history. And it pains me to say that. But the dude triangled himself. He sat there to get triangled. Jalen Turner announced the day after a fight that he was going to retire. I think that's a good move for him. Look, low fight IQ is how you take damage and you take years off of your life. Jalen Turner just doesn't have the fight IQ to hang in with the top 15 professional fighters in the world. He can't do it, man. Not to take anything away from Ignacio Bahamondes. He was just as great as Jalen Turner. Like I said, Jalen Turner, I believe, had a slight edge on the feet. Brought it down to the ground and just terrible fight IQ from there. Triangles himself. This was the first loss we took on the card, and like I said, Jalen Turner's fight IQ was a little bit better. I think we would have gotten a different result and almost went perfect on the night. Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. We went with the highlight Justin Gaethje, my second most confident, maybe tied for the first most confident pick next to Ozzy Diaz to win this fight. It went pretty much identical to the first fight. All right, Justin Gaethje landed a dirty underhook. I think that was in the second round. I'm not remembering it clearly. You could see he's got one knockdown. I thought he was going to finish the fight. I think it was in the second round. Rafael Fiziev did win the first round. He went in with a grappling heavy approach right when the bell started. Landed a takedown. Had a little bit of control time. And I think he walked away with that round. Justin Gaethje takes the next 2 rounds. He landed slightly more strikes. He landed a few more significant strikes. But it was ultimately that knockdown. It was a dirty uppercut, just like the first fight. And he got some control times, a little bit of ground and pound from there. And it was a Justin Gaethje unanimous decision. I would have liked to see a knockout, but Rafael Fiziev is a tough guy. He's a really tough guy. I hope this doesn't hurt his rankings at all. Maybe he drops to 12, but I think 11's a great spot for him. And I hope he has a great career from here on out. I really do. I love Gaethje too much. Didn't need him to lose this fight. I said as long as Gaethje or Pereira won, I'd be happy. So I'm happy. Not as happy as I could be, but I'm happy. And Rafael Fiziev, he looked great despite coming off of 2 losses over a year and a half. It was like 530 days and a torn ACL. I didn't think he was going to come back and look as good as he did in the first fight, but he did. So he shocked me there. I got to give him props to that, but bigger props to Justin Gaethje. I hope they give him Islam next. I'd like to see him, I don't know how much longer we're going to have him in his prime. People were worried about his chin after the Holloway fight. I told you I wasn't, and I was right. But I think we have a small window of prime Justin Gaethje left. I don't see maybe another year and a half, maybe. Let him have a shot at Islam. Let him have a shot at Islam. Let Tapura fight some other lightweight. Don't just give Tapura a chance at the belt. That's silly. Let him fight a serious lightweight contender, somebody in the top 15, just to make sure that he can take Islam and he can hang with lightweights. Great win, Justin Gaethje. We got this one right. We were, 8 for 9. 8 for 9 going into the main event. Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. Let me just start by saying, look, there's a lot of people screaming robbery for this fight. And a lot of the people screaming robbery for this fight aren't screaming robbery for the Mairon Santos versus Santos-Marshall fight. You're an idiot. That was one of the worst robberies I've ever seen in my life, but I was on the right side of it, so I'm not going to complain too much more about it. But this fight right here, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, was no robbery. At the very best, I have it 3-2 Magomedov. And I don't like this guy at all. I don't ever want to see this guy fight again. I don't. It was a boring fight. He made it a very boring fight. I will say he rocked Pereira. Man, I want to say in the second round. I'm forgetting exactly where it was. I think he rocked him a couple times, but he seriously rocked Pereira, I think, at the end of the second round. Had Pereira backing up the entire fight. Alex was backing up the entire fight, and he looked tired. It was wearing down on him. You know, anytime you see a fight going the distance and you see a fighter backing up, not even 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, that fighter's losing that fight. So people saying Pereira should have won this, where there was not a single round where he was pressing forward the entire round, is diabolical. Now, I did give Pereira the first and the fifth. Magomedov won rounds 2, rounds 3, and rounds 4. He landed more total strikes. Alex Pereira just was not throwing any volume. All right, I want to blame this fight for being boring on Magomed Ankalaev. I do want to say that it was his fault for this fight being boring. I thought it would end in a knockout. I didn't, I had Alex Pereira to win via knockout, but I also had some bets. I was in Vegas, so I bet on it to just end in a knockout. Didn't matter who. And man, it was, Ankalaev, 12 failed takedown attempts, so I got to give Alex Pereira props. I didn't think he would stuff 12 takedown attempts. I thought he would get taken down once or twice. So props to Alex Pereira. He obviously did a lot of work trying to prevent those takedowns. He did not want to end up on his back. But Magomedov, he just clinch fucked Alex Pereira pretty much. That's what we saw for 25 minutes. He just held Alex Pereira against the cage pretty much the entire fight. He did fight southpaw, which was a big problem for Alex. He wasn't attacking that leg as much as he should have. Until the end of the fight, I think, was really when he started to put some on. But if he would have I think Alex Pereira, what he needs to work on before we go in the rematch is he needs to have a better strategy to attack that right leg. To force Ankalaev to switch to orthodox, that needs to be a priority before the third round. You need to damage that leg enough. Even if you got to eat a little bit of damage, you need to damage that leg enough to where Ankalaev is forced into orthodox and that left hook's open. I did hear Alex Pereira had some injuries going into this fight. I'm not going to hear those excuses. He looked the most confident I've ever seen him. Even the second Yuri fight. He looked more confident about this matchup. He looked like he put more preparation into it. He even posted a $200,000 bet that he wanted to make with Ankalaev a week out. And he just went out there and did not look like himself. He was backing up the entire time. Did not control the clinches against the cage. He needs to fight for the underhooks. Didn't attack that right leg enough. Didn't throw enough strikes. Didn't throw a lot of power strikes. He did land a decent, or I'd say half of the head kick got through, I think, in the fourth round, but this was Ankalaev's fight all day. I think Ankalaev made this fight boring, but so did Alex, just with the lack of volume. He looked hesitant and just kind of didn't know what to do with that southpaw entrance from Ankalaev. So I'm very bummed out that Alex lost. I'm confident that he'll be back. I'm confident that he'll make adjustments and come in with a better game plan. Props to him for not getting knocked out. He did get rocked a couple times. Not quite enough to give Ankalaev any knockdowns per se, but it was very close. But yeah, like I said, Ankalaev won this fight very clearly. Rounds 2, 3, and 4. Maybe even give him round 1. And I see one of the judges scored at 49-46. Yeah, this was not Alex's fight. Look, it was a great win for Ankalaev. I don't want to take too much away from him. I'm still going to have fun moving forward. I mean, look, like I said, we've nailed most of these. These were my picks going into the fight, but I've been having fun with people that are Ankalaev fans on Twitter. I think I'm going to continue. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to milk this as much as I can. Ankalaev said he would not grapple. He grappled. I'm sure he just forgot and did not mean to lie and sin. That got 6,000 views. That I love cooking these Ankalaev guys on X. Right here, Dovey said next up. This is the fight card this weekend. I said, oh, thank God. I thought Ankalaev was on the card, but luckily he only fights once a year. People are upset about that. This guy told me to cry. I said, who do you think I am, your girlfriend? Why would I be crying? I'm going to be having fun cooking all of these Ankalaev fans as long as it lasts. I'm very excited to see the rematch, even though I never want to see Ankalaev fight again after he loses that. But let's move on to the bingo card. We had a very big part of the bingo card hit Saturday, and that's going to be the god-awful scorecard. Right here at the top left almost. It was one of the worst scorecards I've ever seen in my life. I doubt it'll be top. The Santos-Marshall versus Mairon Santos fight. So I got to give it. I got to put my space there. It's this bingo card starting to come together here. I'll even hide my camera just to give you guys a quick glimpse of the entire thing. The bingo card's coming together real nice. Bingo card's coming together nice. Hopefully it doesn't hit. I don't feel like fighting a UFC fighter, but I will organize that and I'll spar a UFC fighter if that hits. $100 to the first person that completes the bingo card before I do. But that's episode 15 of The Fight Guy. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back this week for the March 15th card on my birthday. That's The Fight Guy. You have a good night.